Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of ArtByRow.com, where I help hobby artists grow by teaching them how to focus on the process rather than the outcome. I specialize in developing creativity, creating more art in less time, and using graffiti art to generate ideas instead of always wondering what you should be working on. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, subscribe so you get notified whenever new videos get uploaded. Now let's head on over to the art studio and do some drawings. We're going to work on today's tutorial together. Let's head on over. Alright, so for this video, I'm going to be showing you how I draw my haunted houses. And there's a lot of different ways to draw them, but this is one of the more popular ones. It's done on an artist trading card. And in the group where I trade these go really quickly, and then I usually have to make more. So while doing more of these cards to offer them up for trade, I thought I'd make a video on it since they're so popular in the group. So what I do is I start with a little bit of a hill to show the ground, and then right in the center I make kind of a tall skinny rectangle, and this is going to be the main part of the house. And then for the roof, I draw this kind of a triangle shape, but with a flat top. And again, you can do this in a lot of different ways. This is just how I like to draw them. This is what seems to be popular for what people want. And then from there, I add another triangle. And this one, I usually leave the peak pointed, and this is going to be the roof for the porch. Now the cool thing about these haunted houses is that they actually look better if you don't draw your lines straight. So there's not a lot of pressure to make everything even and lined up and straight. You can make your lines really crooked. And a lot of times what I'll go back in and do is, especially for these main parts of the buildings, when I do my outline, I'll make these lines so they're not as straight. Just because I like how they look. I think they look a little bit more interesting. It makes them look kind of cuter, I think. I'm not going for a real spooky type of drawing, but just so it looks like a haunted house. So sometimes I'll split these boards up. So what I'm doing, I put the post for the porch here, and then just framing in this roof part. So imagine these are like 2x4s or whatever. And the same thing up here, just kind of framing it in. And then you can put windows up here to make it look like an attic. Or you can leave it just the shingles, or you can make it look more like siding. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I don't really think there's any right or wrong way when you're making them. Just do whatever you think looks good. Put a line down here for the porch. Put a couple boards for the frame. And then what I like to do when I'm making these is to board them up so it looks like they don't want anybody to go inside. And when you do this, extend the boards out past where the frame goes. You can add a little indication for steps there if you want. And then for the windows, you can do your windows so they're square, or you can do them with arches. And typically what I do is I'll make a couple little guidelines for the tops and the bottoms so I can make them kind of even. And then again, I'm going to draw out the boards for the frames. So you want everything to have that double width to it to make it look more detailed and a little bit more realistic. And then you could also board these up if you want. I think it really adds to the look of the haunted houses if you board up the windows. Again, just making them longer than where your frame is at. And then, so I've done some of them where they're just a single. I got some that I finished, so like this, for example, where you can leave them just the single house, just the one portion of the house. Those look kind of nice. But you can also go in here and add a couple additional pieces to the house, make the house a little bit bigger. And when I do this, I just keep the roof similar, do the same thing, make sure these line up, draw them coming out, draw your boards, and then just make the sides of your house, which again, you can make them straight or they don't have to be. I personally like it better when they're a little crooked looking. Then you can add a couple windows. And when you're making these, they don't all have to be the same. I mean, if you think about it, if you're seeing a haunted house, it's some old building that maybe wasn't taken care of real well. It was allowed to get run down. So maybe whoever owned the house, they put windows in, but the windows don't match. So don't be afraid to play around with making it kind of fun looking, and you can have different types of windows if you want. You can board them up, not board them up. And again, like I said, you don't have to keep everything really straight and even. It'll make them look a little bit better if they're somewhat crooked. It adds to the effect of the haunted house. You know, this house wasn't taken care of. It's now closed, it's abandoned. So you can assume that if a house has been abandoned, that the upkeep on it wasn't very good. So, and then for your siding of your house, you can add some little bits of texture. You can do boards if you want to do boards. Just depends on how detailed you want to go. I just put some indications of some texture for the wood. You can do the same thing in here if you want. And then same goes for your shingles. You could do wavy lines up here. You could draw out the actual shingles if you want. And then down here for the ground, you can put some rocks if you want to put some rocks. You can draw some shrubs or bushes or weeds or whatever you want to put in here. A couple rocks, some little pieces of dirt. So that's it for the sketch. And then we're going to grab a black outlining pen and add an outline to it. Okay, so one thing I do want to mention is that when you're doing your outlines, make sure this board where the window's boarded up, make sure this is on the outside of your window so it doesn't have any lines going through it when you're doing your outline. That way it'll look like the board's going over top. So usually what I'll do is I'll do that bottom ledge piece of the frame, and then I'll do my boards, and then you just have to sort of eyeball where these lines come down. And again, they don't have to be perfect, so you don't have to stress too much about it. But you do want to make sure that these lines for the boards go on the outside, which means when you're drawing them, you have to make sure you don't draw any lines going straight through them. So I'm just going to finish this up. do my boards. And you can think about how your boards overlap, right? Because you want it to look like these boards were just nailed up onto the outside of the windows, which means they would be right over top of the frame, the wood frame of your windows. And then while you have your black outlining pen, you can fill in any windows that you want to be black, if you want it to be dark inside the house. Or sometimes it's makes it a little bit more creepy looking if you add some lights on in the house, so it looks like here's this abandoned house that's all boarded up, but there's actually some lights on in the windows. So typically what I'll do is I'll make some of them just colored in black. So for instance, the door, I can just fill all this in black, so it looks like it's dark in there. But then maybe on the upstairs, I might put some yellow in the window, some yellow or orange or whatever in the windows to make it look like there's a light on inside the house, which adds to the eeriness of the haunted house, I think. And then I'm gonna just add those little texture lines for the siding. And I'm imagining that this house has just old wood siding, so I want to add some texture in here just to kind of break it up. And I'm trying to keep them fairly uneven. I don't really want any kind of pattern to it. And then up here I might just do some wavy lines for the roof. So the next thing is going to be to clean this up with an eraser, and I have this eraser that I use. And when you clean up your drawings, you want to make sure you hold your paper down so it doesn't bunch up and wrinkle. And I'm doing this on a heavy cardstock. That's what I make my artist trading cards on. So I'm just going to erase all this. Hold this card down flat. These make really nice artist trading cards. If you're not familiar with artist trading cards, I'll drop a link to our free beginner's guide to artist trading cards. If you want to look into what they're about, I'll throw the link in there in the description. So there's the outline, and I'm going to go grab some colors and I'll be right back. So I pretty much already know what colors I want to use, but what I'll typically do is I have these leftover pieces of cardstock from when I cut out my artist trading cards, and I'll use that to test out my colors. But I've made a bunch of these, so I pretty much know what colors I like using. I really like using these blue grays from Arteza. I think they look really nice for the haunted house drawings. And usually what I'll do is for each section, I'll add 2 different color markers just to add a little bit of depth so it's not so flat looking. So I'll use these 2 colors. One's kind of a gray and one's more of a kind of a blue gray. And then I have a couple of browns that I'll use for the wood, all the wood trim pieces. And I'll do the same thing. I'll just go over them and then just add a little bit of areas of dark where there might be some shadows, and just to break up the big chunks of color. And then I use a yellow and kind of a golden orange color for anywhere I want there to be lights on. And again, you can do all of the windows so they're just black, so it looks like it's dark inside. Or you can go in with your yellows and your oranges and kind of make it look like there's some lights are on in the house, which makes it look a little creepy. There's an abandoned house, but yet there's lights on. So usually what I'll do is I'll do a couple with some lights, and then the other ones I'll just go ahead and fill in with the black. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, and I'll be back when I have the colors done. So here's the finished card, the finished drawing. If you wanted, you could go in with this white Jelly Roll pen. They work really well for going over marker. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just go in and break up some of this color by adding some white in there. Maybe add some little specks of white down here in the dirt and in the little bushes that are down there. It's up to you. That's personal preference. If you want to just leave it or if you want to add some white. And there will be links to all the supplies that I used in the description. And I'll add the link to the Artist Trading Card Guide if you're not familiar with Artist Trading Cards are and you want to get started. So I think that's about it. That's a haunted house. And usually what I'll do is I'll do a series of drawings. So like for the Artist Trading Cards, I did a few of them because there was a little bit of a demand for them in the Artist Trading Card group. So I went ahead and did some additional cards, and I try to kind of change it up a little bit, but some of them are pretty similar only because I wanted to get them done. Halloween's in a couple days at the time of this recording, and I wanted to get them out and traded before Halloween was over. So that's it for the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. So how did you do? Hopefully you followed along with the tutorial and worked on your own artwork. If you enjoyed this and you want to get notified of other lessons that are coming up in the future, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified whenever something new gets uploaded. Have a good day and happy creating!